All right, guys. I posted something today, and I've been posting it for a long time with regards to Mamdani's background. And I posted that Mamdani, and you can read all about it on the internet, on Wikipedia in particular, that he is a Twelver Shiite. He is part of the Twelver Shiite sect of Islam. He is an adherent to the Twelver Shiite ideology. What do Twelvers believe? Twelvers believe that they believe in someone called the Mahdi, the 12th Imam. That's why they call Twelvers. And they believe that the Mahdi, who is their version of the Messiah, will come if Israel, basically, God forbid, goes kaboom. To put it in simple terms. So the Ayatollah of Iran, as you guys know, is a Twelver Shiite, and his regime follows that ideology. And the new mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, is a Twelver Shiite. How do we know that, though, guys? Just because Wikipedia said so doesn't mean that it's irrefutable. So let's do a deep dive in who are the people that or the family or the I guess the caste that Zoran hails from. He hails from a Indian caste who were originally in India, and then they moved around a lot. They moved to different places in Africa. But let's read about them. They're called the Khoja, or the Khoja. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Khoja. So he says the Khoja are a tribe or caste of Muslims, mainly members of the Naziri Ismailia sect of Islam, with a minority of followers of Shia Islam originating in the Western Indian subcontinent, converted to Islam from Hinduism by the 14th century by the Persian religious leader or teacher Sadr al-Din. In India, most Khojas live in the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and city of Hyderabad. In Pakistan, most live in Karachi, Hyderabad, and Tata in Sindh province, and Gwadar and Balochistan province. So it goes on where they live in Oman. So he says that the Khoja originally observed Hinduism, then became adherents of Nizari Ismailism. In the late 19th and 20th century, particularly in the aftermath of the Aga Khan case, it was a big case like of religious sectarianism in 1866. In the High Court of Bombay, a small minority separated and adopted Sunni Islam and Twelver Shia Islam, while the majority remained Naziri Ismaili. Now it goes on to say, etymology. The term, folks, listen to this very carefully. The term Khoja derives from Khoja, or New Persian, I don't know how to pronounce this, Khaje, a Persian honorific title of pious individuals used in Turco-Persian influenced regions of the Muslim world. The specific term Khoja in Gujarati and Sindhi languages was first bestowed by the Persianate Nizari Ismaili Sadruddin. He was a 14th century Shia Ismaili Dai, I guess cleric, who founded the Satpant Tariqa, so one of their sects, who died in the 15th century. Upon his followers during the lifetime of the Nizari Ismaili Imam Islam Shah, who lived from 1368 to 1423. As such, Pir Shihab al-Din Shah, brother of one of the Nizari Ismaili Imams, wrote regarding the origins of the Khoja that the very formation of the community came about through Pir Sadruddin's devotion to the Imam. So he goes on to say all this different sectarian stuff that happened. Folks, the name of this caste of people is a Persian name. See, it says they're an ethnic and cultural group originating from the Hindu Lohanas. It's a Hindu caste, mostly residing in India and also in Pakistan. So they stem from this Lohan, the bigger caste. Their ethnonym Khoja is derived from the Persian term Khwaja, which roughly translates to Lord or Master, a translation of the traditional Lohana title of Takar, It's an Indian family name. However, the term also included certain groups as Haranas, predominantly from Gujarat and Kutch. Folks, these are old peoples, ancient peoples. There's billions of them. And they broke up into different cats and different groups, as you can see. And many of them follow different sects of, obviously different religions, different sects of different religions, and so forth. So he says, the Hindu Lohanos from Sindh were converted to Nizari Ismailism by Pir Sadr al-Din in the 14th, 15th century. Sadr al-Din was a missionary, da'i, missionary, acting on behalf of the Nizari Imam, who lived in Persia. Sadr al-Din belonged to the hereditary lineage of Pirs who served as the leaders of the Khoja community as a deputy of the Imam in Persia. My friends, does that sound familiar to you? Folks, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Mamdani is doing missionary work for the Ayatollah of Iran, if you will, so to speak. Let's see, what else does it give you here? Here you go. The majority of the Pirs composed religious hymns called ginans that served as the religious scriptures of the Khoja, for the Khojas rather than the Quran. The majority of the ginans glorify their Nizari Imam as an absolute and infallible leader. This is the guy from Persia. Some ginans contain large amounts of Hindu-Muslim syncretism. These are like songs, basically, right? With Hindu deities being identified with Muslim figures. The ginans took inspiration from diverse traditions, including Nizari Ismailism, Hindu Sant and Bhakti traditions, and Sufism. Such syncretism with Hinduism has been viewed as a strategy by the Ismaili missionaries to convert Hindus, as well as taqiyya, to hide them from other Muslims. The religion of the Khojas was known as Satpant. It's a Sanskrit term. It's like a mix of Islam and Hinduism. That was the original thing that they were following. Okay. I have to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. At the end of the 15th century, the Imam in Persia, Al-Mustansir Billah II, oh my goodness, abolished the Purs as a source of religious authority and replaced them. So he abolished these missionary guys, I believe. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, not the missionary guys. These clerics, and replaced them with a book called Pandiyat-i Jawan Mardi, which was then translated into Gujarati. I guess it's a language. Imam Shah, who passed away in 1513, was supposed to become the next Pir, the missionary. I'm sorry, not the missionary, the Imam. But in response to the Imam's decision, Imam Shah's son Nur Muhammad claimed that he was the Imam and founded a splinter sect called the Imam Shahis, also known as Sat Pantis. In the 19th centuries, the Khojas gathered in Jama-at-Khana buildings. It's kind of like these places of worship on the hills. Did not read the Quran and generally did not follow Islamic law. The Khojas, mainly merchants from Kutch and Kathiawar, began moving to Bombay in the late 1700s. There they were engaged in petty trade and shopkeeping with larger magnates gaining fortunes from trade routes with China, Muscat, and Zanzibar. Like that song, Zanzibar. In 1845, Hassan Ali Shah, a.k.a. Aga Khan, not to be confused with Shaka Khan, Shaka Khan, moved to India due to conflict with the Qajar dynasty in Persia. He settled in Bombay, which had the largest concentration of Khojas in India. For centuries, the Khojas had been a self-governing community with nominal allegiance to a distant Nizari Imam in Persia. But the newly arrived Aga Khan sought to interfere in their internal affairs. This led to conflict in the Khoja community, culminating in the Aga Khan case of 1866. So basically they had a split. See, it says, British judge decided in favor of the defendant, Aga Khan, ruling that the Khojas were descendants of Hindus who became Shia Ismailis and thus were under religious authority of the Imam Aga Khan. In response to the verdict, some Khojas converted to Sunni Islam. Now listen to this. The Imam succeeding the next Imam, Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan III, from 1885 to 1957, continued to attempt to exert his authority over the Khojas and push them towards normative Ismaili Shia Islam. This led to the Haji Bibi case, another case, 1908, over the inheritance of the estate of Hassan Ali Shah, a Persian nobleman. The plaintiffs in the Haji Bibi case of 1908 claimed that the Khojas were followers of 12er Shia Islam. However, the British judge upheld that the Khojas were Ismaili, and so the Khojas split off. The Khojas split off to follow 12er Shia Islam. So this happened in 1908. So this is all Mamdani's people, folks. Even though their name comes from Persia anyway, right? So they were always Shia, no matter how you slice it. Okay. Yeah, see, the Khojas were under pressure from Aga Khan as well as Muslim and Hindu fundamentalist movements to alter their religion. The religious fundamentalists considered the Khojas to be heretics who should convert to Sunni or 12er Shia Islam or normative Hinduism. The Aga Khans who wielded religious power over the community as Imam sought to Islamize the community to normative Ismailism. The Ginans were codified under their authority. Those with Hindu influences were purged, and new Ginans were composed. These are the songs with Quranic verses. So they basically brought back Quranic stuff from Quran into this mix of Hinduism and whatever, right? And Islam. The use of Gujarati language is also replaced by English. By the time of the Imam Shah Karim al-Husseini Aga Khan IV, the Khojas has been integrated into the transnational Ismaili community with a focus on the Quran and literacy of Islamic concepts. The Khojas today live in India, Pakistan, with a significant diaspora in East Africa, Uganda, Europe, and North America. They show strong commitment to the values of Indo-Muslim philanthropy in their business entrepreneurship, contribution to society which they live. From the 18th century, some of them have migrated to the Persian Gulf region, mainly in the Sultanate of Oman and UAE, where they are known as Al-Lawatiyya. So it's a particular tribe. That's how they're known. 12er Khojas. Let's deep dive into these guys. 12er Khojas, and then we'll move on to an article about Mamdani's family. Khojas who follow 12er Shia Islam and have large communities in Pakistan, India, East Africa, North America, and United Kingdom. Mulvi Ali Bakhsh, who had settled in Mumbai from the mid-late 1800s, was a prominent Mulvi with great respect in the Itna Shari Khoja community. It is said that the Shias were organized into a distinct community by Mulvi Ali Bakhsh himself. This is like their guy. It's like a book he wrote. Wonderful. 12er Khojas are said to have broken away from the Ismaili Khojas due to their determination to defend their remembrance practices against Aga Khan's efforts to ban them in order to elevate his personal status as the reincarnation of Ismail ibn Jafar, the seventh Imam of the Ismailis. This guy was like one of the big Shia dudes, I guess. Yeah, sixth Imam of Ismailism. Folks, this is fascinating, right? But no matter how you slice it, Mamdani is a 12er. So let's read about Mamdani. So this is an article in theconversation.com. Zohran Mamdani's last name reflects centuries of intercontinental trade, migration, and cultural exchange. So he says, became the next mayor-elect of New York City. Many Americans are familiar with his progressive platform and legislative record, but understanding the Democratic candidate's background requires examining rich cultural tapestry woven into his surname, Mamdani. He takes the name from his father, Mahmoud Mamdani, a prominent academic who was raised in Uganda, and his work focuses on post-colonial Uganda, communism, Marxism, and anti-Israelism. I studied the history of the Khoja community for my doctoral work and have helped develop Khoja studies as an academic discipline. The Mamdani surname tells a story of migration, resilience, and building that spans centuries and continents. Mamdanis in Uganda belong to the Khoja community. I just told you guys about them. A South Asian Muslim merchant caste that shaped the economic development across Western Indian Ocean for centuries. So we're going to skip all this. Just telling you the same thing I just told you guys. She says the Khojas were categorized by the British in the early 19th century as the Hindu Musulman, like Hindu Muslims, because their traditions spanned both religions. Over time, the Khoja identified only as a Muslim and then primarily Shiite Muslim. Today, the majority of Khoja are Ismaili, branch of Shiite Islam that follows the Aga Khan, is living Imam. The Mamdani family, however, is part of the Twelver community of Khoja, whose 12th Imam is believed to be hidden from the world and only emerges in times of crisis, which Iran could possibly foment. Twelvers believe he will help usher in an age of peace during end times. Oh yeah, buddy. Okay, so this says Khoja helped export textiles and timber and ivory, minerals, clothes, blah blah blah. Wonderful. They went from Zanzibar to Bombay. Oh, okay. I told you guys about this in Africa. Let's see. They did stuff in Africa, etc. Khoja in Uganda, like in other parts. Listen to this. Like in other parts of Africa, the Khoja settled in Uganda as a liaison business community to develop a market to serve both African and European needs. The linguistic and cultural knowledge developed over centuries helped facilitate business despite challenges of colonization. However, in 1972, Ugandan dictator Idi Amin expelled all Asians, approximately 80,000, forcing families like the Mamdanis into exile. These included indentured laborers who were brought in to help build a railroad, farm, and during the British colonial period, and free traders like the Mamdani family. Amin saw them all as the same and famously said, Asians came to Uganda to build a railway, the railway is finished, they must leave now. Simple, folks. The experience was a bitter one. Families lost everything, and many left with only clothes on their backs. Mahmoud Mamdani, who came from a Khoja merchant family, was 26 years old when he exiled. Yet, unlike most Ugandan Asians, he chose to go back. At Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda's capital, Mamdani set up the Institute for Social Research, which helped to provide rigorous social science training to Ugandan researchers trying to improve society. Folks, you know it's ironic that Mamdani wants to arrest Bibi, and Bibi's brother, Jonathan, died in Entebbe at the hands of like Idi Amin's, foot soldiers. While the earlier generations of the Khoja tended to choose business or adjacent professions such as accounting, the subsequent generations, particularly those educated in the West, embraced the knowledge economy as professionals, academics, and non-profit leaders. Basically, yeah. Several of Mahmoud Mamdani's generation of Khoja academics conducted path-breaking work for Afro-Asian solidarity, a way of thinking about the world beyond colonial categories, such as the category of religion as a separate domain from the secular. These scholars, such as Tanzania's Isa Shivji and Abdul Sharif, worked on creating solidarity among the newly independent states of the global South. Mahmoud Mamdani is known for his influential post-9/11 academic work, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. It's a book which examined how Muslim identities are stereotyped. He argued that these identities are complex and varied, shaped by accumulated history and present experiences. Let's see, they're just talking about the interfaith identity. Mamdani's mother, acclaimed filmmaker Mira Nair, is Hindu by birth. Folks, it's interesting. His parents are an interfaith marriage, because his father is a Shiite, 12 Shiite, his mother is a Hindu. And then Mamdani, who's like a mix of those two, married a Syrian Sunni girl. This interfaith marriage exemplifies the flexibility, diversity, and tolerance of Khoja Islam, which has historically navigated between Hindu and Islamic traditions. Even though nobody's telling you that, they told you he's a 12er, specifically. Whether Mamdani's policies prove practical remains to be seen, but his background offers something valuable, a deep understanding of how communities build resilience across generations and geographies. Folks, he's a 12er Shiite. He is, the name of his people comes from Persia. The name is Persian. It's a Persian name. He's not Persian, but the name is Persian, folks. Right? See, there's an article here, May 27, 2025, from An Iranian news site, Kayhan.ir. Tehran, Iran's Quran reciters thrill Khoja Shias in Tanzania. A special Quranic gathering has been held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, bringing together members of the Khoja Shia community and renowned Iranian Quran reciters from the widely viewed television program Mahfel. The event, organized in the main Khoja Mosque and Imam Barga, was held at the invitation of the Tabligh Committee of the Khoja Itna Asheri Jamaat of Dar es Salaam. It drew a large audience of community members and Quran students from affiliated schools, according to Iran's cultural attaché office in Tanzania. The Quranic show Mahfel, broadcast in Iran during Ramadan, has gained significant popularity and featuring world-class reciters, engaging Quranic performances, and fostering a deep spiritual connection with viewers. Among the participants was all these different singers, blah blah blah. Iran's cultural counselor in Tanzania, Mr. Marefi, described the gathering as a valuable opportunity for international Quranic figures and organizations to connect with the Khoja Shia community. The program was a collaborative initiative involving the International Quran Foundation, the Mahfel TV production team, the Islamic Culture and Relations Organization, International Quran and Propagation Center, and local branch of Al Mustafa International University in Tanzania. Folks, everything I just read to you from these 3 pages, these 3 websites, is the new mayor of New York. This is your new mayor of New York City. Folks, I really don't know what else to say. The only thing I can do, and I should have pulled it up, I can go to the Wayback Machine. I once had a blog. This is when I first started writing. The blog was entitled 11 times. So here we go. Let's see if I can find this article that I wrote. I wrote an article about 9/11. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Settlers for Peace. Oh, here we go. Okay. And I'm going to end with this, guys. I'm going to end with this. And this, yeah. This is an article from September 11th, 2011. 14 years ago, my friends. Over 14 years ago. It's entitled, written by me, or in the words of Tony Montana, me. Who's the one to put this thing together? Me. Okay. 9/11, 10 years of America's intellectual dishonesty. So it was 10-year anniversary. Okay. When it comes to recollecting an important historical event, one says the phrase, I remember the day as if it were yesterday, because in fact time is not linear. It is a spiral. We know that it is a spiral not only because we have come to learn it from our study of the cosmos, but also because we see that history tends to repeat itself. My father and I were on our way to Hoboken on a New Jersey transit train. We heard that the Twin Towers were hit by commercial airliners. We then subsequently saw the burning the closer we got to Hoboken, and then saw nothing but a colossal cloud of smoke when we came out of the tunnel which connects the Porterville and Hoboken stops. Right then and there, I had a remote idea of who may have perpetrated this act. The reason I knew this was because 8 years prior, so 1993, pardon me, the very same entity failed in their attempt to accomplish a similar feat when Kuwaiti national and Al-Qaeda trained Ramzi Youssef orchestrated an attack where a truck bomb was placed in the underground parking lot of the North Tower with the intention of knocking down the North Tower into the South Tower, thus bringing both towers down. By the way, folks, there was an imam we know who was part of this whole thing, who Mamdani's friends with. I forget the guy's name. You guys should look this up. Famous thing recently reported about. Shortly after the successful attack on what is the financial backbone of the Western world, we heard nothing but calls of tolerance from our media and politicians, including George W. Bush, by the way. We were instructed to distinguish between peaceful Muslims and radical Muslims. Mahmoud Mamdani's book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, right? And that those who perpetrated this attack had perverted an otherwise peaceful religion so as to achieve certain political objectives. Moreover, In the run-up to our first retaliatory act, which would be the invasion of Afghanistan, we were told that the war in which we were about to partake would be dubbed the Global War on Terror. I didn't put hand at the end. That's just me imitating George W. Bush. At the time, two thoughts immediately came to mind. How can one fight against the concept, in this case being terror? It is usually an unwinnable war. You can defeat those who follow a particular idea or a concept, but you can never defeat the idea itself. We have defeated communist and fascist regimes in the past, but the ideas remain alive and well. You can't take thoughts out of people's heads and inclinations out of their hearts. And number two, why do we refuse to identify the enemy? They have not perverted Islam to further the political objectives. In fact, they are actually following its teachings to the T, which are a theopolitical construct more so than a guide on spirituality for desert dwellers. If we are honest with ourselves, then we may as well target all those who are considered terrorists. Just terrorists, right? i.e. Basque separatists in Spain, the Irish Republican Army in the UK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party in Turkey, the Nuclei Territoriali Anti-Imperialisti in Italy, and the Tamil Tigers in India. In the subsequent 10 years after the 9/11 attack, the enemy began to stare us right in the face, and we still refuse to identify him by name because of our uber politically correct sensibilities. We witnessed trains bombed in Madrid and London in 2004 and 2005, respectively. We witnessed Americans and journalist Daniel Pearl and contractors Nick Berg, Owen Armstrong, Jack Hensley, as well as British national Kenneth Bigley, beheaded on national television. This is all like Afghanistan, Iraq, folks, Pakistan. We witnessed attempts at yet more attacks on American soil by one man hiding a bomb in his shoe and another man hiding one in his underwear. We witnessed Theo van Gogh, who was a Dutch filmmaker and great-nephew of artist Vincent van Gogh, murdered on the streets of Amsterdam for producing a film criticizing the treatment of women in Islam, as well as the firebombing of the Danish embassies in Pakistan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran after the Danish newspaper Jyllands Posten published political cartoons critical of the Prophet Muhammad. All perpetrators follow the same creed, and the creed is not terror per se, it is Islam. Terror is merely the vehicle in which they carry out their instructions of their ideology. So when one is instructed by the media and governments not to pool in Muslims with the radical extremists, one begins to question who is mainstream and who is the radical. It seems to me as though mainstream Muslims are either actively or passively supporting these acts, or at the very least complicit with them. The few who oppose such behavior are in fact part of the minority camp, who are actually the radicals. We can thus rename them the Reform Muslims as opposed to the majority who are Orthodox Muslims, right? This camp comprises of people such as Pakistani British-born author Salman Rushdie. By the way, somebody tried to kill him recently. He had a fatwa on his head. President of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. M. Zudi Jasser. Folks, these are all like people who were prominent in 2011. Somali activist and author Ayan Hirsi Ali. Lebanese-American activist and author Brigitte Gabriel. Pakistani-Canadian activist and writer and broadcaster Tarek Fatah. And Palestinian former member of Hamas, writer, son of Hamas, Mossab Hassan Youssef. Still going. Guys, this is 2011 I wrote this article. Just to name a few. All those who have those named have received and continue to receive death threats from Muslims all over the world. Some live under constant protection of bodyguards, despite having been demonstrated to ad nauseum as to who the actual enemy is. The media and government then goes on to point out that we can't identify the enemy because he wears no uniform and does not represent any particular nation state. But once again, we examine the actors. Iran, who are most certainly a nation state, have been and continue to be the largest state sponsor of Islamic terrorism in the world. Their satellites in Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Mahdi army in Iraq all wear distinct uniforms. Sort of. Moreover, competing interpretations of Islam has not stopped them from forming an alliance. These entities have perpetrated acts on Israeli soil as well as on U.S. military forces stationed abroad long before 9/11, and they were inspired by the very same ideology. Despite all of the events listed, the proponents of this ideology realize that they cannot in fact defeat the West militarily, so they would hit Western society in areas which are more powerful than our sword. It would be our purse and our legal system. Despite causing chaos and fear in the eyes of all those who witnessed the act, the collapse of the towers was intended to be more of a symbolic act. The real intent was to topple our economic and political system by using our own massive weight against us. The people behind this were clearly financial wizards and astute students of the US Constitution, sadly enough, more so than most American citizens. In the investigation following the attack, it was uncovered that in the weeks leading up to it, there was a massive short selling of all airline stocks in the US market. Moreover, the masterminds saw that the US economy was in the midst of a recession caused by the bursting of the dot-com bubble. As a result, they concluded that the resources required to commit their act would pale in comparison to the ones which the US government would use in retaliation. And they were right. American troops went into Afghanistan and then subsequently Iraq, and while the wartime effect caused the stock market to rebound, like wartime economy, 2003, I remember this distinctly, the national debt and deficit continued to pile up. While the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan waged on, Islam began to use the Western legal systems to further its goals. Muslims continued to immigrate to Western Europe by the millions, all the while refusing to integrate into their new society, and alternatively seeking to establish Sharia law in communities which have operated under the common law of their respective lands for centuries. Sociologists and statisticians are currently predicting that by the year 2050, Europe will be a majority Muslim continent. Folks, I'm going to read this to you again. This is something I wrote in 2011. Sociologists and statisticians are currently predicting that by the year 2050, Europe will be a majority Muslim continent. In my opinion, this is a conservative estimate. It's looking more like 2020 at this rate. I was wrong. Across the pond in the U.S., groups such as, even though there's 6 or 7 Muslim mayors in the UK. Across the pond in the U.S., groups such as CARE and ISNA continue to use the American legal system successfully. They act as front groups for the Muslim Brotherhood, and they have been under a directive to infiltrate the U.S. government from within starting in 1991 with a document entitled An Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goal for the Brotherhood in North America. It states that, quote, the Ikhwan, the Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. So we're here 10 years later. This is me writing in 2011. While both Europe and Canada have slowly begun to identify without apology what is happening in their respective societies, the majority of Americans continue to be intellectually dishonest with themselves. Yeah, at the time, they kind of sort of were trying to identify. And so much so that in 2008, they elected a president without properly vetting him. I'm talking about the American people. Without knowing he has close ties to the people who seek to destroy our nation or wish it ill. With people such as Reverend Jeremiah Goddamn America Wright, Professor Rashid Khalidi, and Van Jones, who held a vigil in Oakland, California, mourning the victims of U.S. imperialism around the world on the night after September 11, 2001, just to name a few. And we continue to ignore his relationship with organizations such as ISNA, who have ties with the Muslim Brotherhood. We continue to be blind to his non-support of the people of Iran in their attempt to revolt against the Islamic regime, 2009, Green Revolution, and his reaching out to the Muslim Brotherhood, his first in his speech in Cairo in 2009, and more recently in his attempts to establish a diplomatic relationship with both of them. The proposed Ground Zero Mosque at the time will be rendered as a mere slap in the face, just as the collapse of the Twin Towers was, and this year's Arab Spring may as well have been the celebratory act by the Muslim world for the occasion of 10 years since 9/11. Because it is an event where we see secular dictatorships fall in favor of Islamist entities, some of which inspired and funded the horrific act 10 years ago. So while we mourn the death of 3,000 innocent Americans at the hands of people who follow the instructions of the Quran, we take no objections at the media having turned this day into what a friend of mine dubbed a tragedy Super Bowl. By now, this day should have already been used as an annual history lesson to educate the American public of the origins of those who perpetrated these attacks, just as was done with Pearl Harbor. It should be a day where we allow the families of those who perished to mourn in private while we learn how to prevent another event like this from happening again. It should be a day where we gain serious awareness of what is currently happening in our country and the rest of the Western world, instead of masochistically reliving the horror of a beautiful autumn morning. Given that in less than 2 weeks, Hamas and Fatah will come to the UN to declare a terrorist state, folks, that was at that time, which will encircle Israel, and with Iran continuing to pursue nuclear capabilities, which can threaten Israel and most of the European continent, and Hezbollah successfully established a presence just south of the U.S. border in Mexico, yes, and now they've crossed over, yes. Maybe Americans will finally come to the realization that what has been at the doorstep of Israel and Europe for decades will now be at their doorstep. Maybe the Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan's eerie prediction when he said, "What you are looking at in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Libya, in Bahrain, what you see happening there, you better prepare because it will be coming to your door." He said that stuff. Will finally register in the minds of Americans, and they will start being intellectually honest with themselves. I know what many of you are thinking. I have Muslim friends, co-workers, and neighbors who are proud to be Americans and have adopted the American way of life. You're going to way overboard with your assertions. If this is the case, I urge you to watch this. So this was a video, it was taken down. Father Zakaria Botros is an Egyptian Coptic priest. He is otherwise known as Islam's most hated man, and Al-Qaeda has put a $60 million bounty on his head. I wonder where he is today. In this video, he addresses what Islam actually is, the concept of taqiyya, and specifically what will happen with supposed moderate Muslims when and if Islam prevails. My friends, I have nothing else to say. I have nothing else to add. We're here 14 years later. Stuff. I don't know what to say. I'm laughing, but it's not funny. I have nothing to add. You know, you guys ever hear Larry David when he goes to a party and he's just, he's had enough, and then he says, "I came up to Jeff, his friend Jeff," and he goes, "I have nothing more to contribute." Folks, I have nothing more to contribute. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you got a lot out of this. And all I can say is have your head on a swivel, if you're Jewish or otherwise. Okay, folks. Talk to you soon.